So, Simo, today is quite a serious topic.
Yep.
And our topic today is fame.
Hey, I know a famous guy. His name's SerpentZA.
Not that famous, but you know, the thing is, we're going to be talking about why it's actually bad to be famous in China.
Okay.
But before we get on that, let's just talk about fame in general. Why is it that people like to become famous? Think you can get past here?
Maybe. I think fame is just one of those inert kind of human drives, right? Like, people want to be successful, people want to make money, and people want to be famous. I think if you have any semblance of self-confidence, you want people to look up to you, you want people to respect you, right? So fame,
correct.
I think the reason that people want to become famous is for money and respect.
Yeah, that's correct. Okay, and what other advantages do people get when they become famous? Like, what happens to their life?
I think their life just generally improves, doesn't it? Like, you make more money, you live in a nicer house, you drive nicer cars, you have more influential friends. You know, apart from the lack of privacy you get from paparazzi and things like that, I think your life is generally better. Otherwise, people wouldn't strive to be famous, right?
That's correct. Wow, that looks really nice out there, eh?
Yeah.
Weather's really good. By the way,
It's hot though.
for those of you wondering why we're in the middle of nowhere, I led us astray.
You led us real
So
astray.
I gotta find a way out.
Yeah.
Okay, now I'm going to say that being famous in China has the opposite effect, and it will actually make your life worse.
Okay.
Okay, and there are a couple of reasons for this, and this is not just for foreigners, for Chinese people as well. See, it kind of works like this. There's a progression. You start to get famous in China, people start to really like you, they love you. You get more and more famous. Let's just say you're writing a blog. Okay? So you're writing a blog, people start to really like your stuff, and you get more and more famous. Oh, it's really nice out here.
It's beautiful.
For those of you who think that China is just a polluted place, it's not. It is beautiful.
Southern China is pretty pretty.
Anyway, continue. So people start to follow you, you get more and more famous, and then suddenly you reach a point where you're just too famous. And by too famous, it means you start to have too much influence.
Yes.
And as soon as you start having too much influence, that's when things get bad. Because that's when the government steps in and says, hey, hang on a second here.
Yeah, and a little disclaimer, the reason the government cares is because the government has complete control over society, right? So if you are swaying people's opinions, then the government's going to start to worry.
Correct. And so then you get things like, you know, popular bloggers getting jailed or censored or shut down. So when you get too famous in China, unless you're like a movie star or something, and if you are a movie star, you still got to watch it. You can't be doing anything controversial.
No.
You'll get shut down, and it could be very bad. You could end up in jail or worse, who knows. So from that point of view, back to civilization.
Nice.
From that point of view, it's actually very dangerous. Now, for foreigners, it really sucks to be famous here. So I'm going to let you go ahead, and you can maybe talk about the ridicule thing.
Okay, like, if you are famous as a foreigner here in China, because let's be honest, there's a lot of Chinese people and not so many foreigners, you're exotic and people want to put you in the media spotlight. So a lot of foreigners get gigs for, you know, whether it's modeling or being on a TV show, or it's surprisingly easy to be in Chinese media here as a foreigner.
Yeah.
Now, the worst part about that actually is the fact that the only reason that you're being put on media, if you've been chosen to be on Chinese media, the only reason is so that you can look bad. Now, the reason for that is China is always it's always kind of been a society of, like, we need to prove ourselves. We need to prove our self-worth. China's a strong country. So any opportunity they get to have foreigners on TV, they're going to make them look funny or silly, or their Chinese isn't good. Look at, they can't grasp our difficult language. Look at, they can't use chopsticks very well.
这还用猜吗？当然是吃。我们可以去找个好吃点的。好吧，好吧。我求你们，我求你们。好吧，走呗。走。好酸啊！谁会喜欢喝这种东西？谁会喜欢喝这种东西？我觉得。
And they'll highlight these issues, and it's kind of demeaning. It's really, actually, I'm going to say 9 times out of 10 of foreigners on TV, it's to make them look silly or stupid. And it does tie in with the Chinese sense of humor, which is always slapstick stuff, right? But, you know, like, I've seen friends and actually just myself a couple times on local TV here. just being made to look dumb, highlighting my mistakes in Chinese. I missed a tone, I messed up a word, right? Maybe my translation wasn't correct, and they highlight and they focus on that to make you look bad, and that's just kind of sucks.
Yeah, it is frustrating, especially if you're doing a really good job and you pretty much get it all right. They'll just look at the one little mistake. Now, there's a couple of good examples of this. Number one, you know, we've got our Conquering Southern China promotion video. Now, for those of you who haven't seen the Conquering Southern China promotion video, well, I don't know where you've been living, but anyway, it's a pretty serious thing about like our adventure. So we tried to get it promoted on the Chinese media here, and somebody agreed to promote it, and they put it up on the Youku page or whatever.
Yep.
And they titled it Gao Xiao Do Lao Wai, which means hilarious foreigners, like traipse around the country, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Try to make it look like these silly, hilarious clowns, you know, which is really freaking frustrating.
Because we feel like we did a really professional and good job.
Yeah, and then, you know, we have our friend Jiaoza guy, Austin Guidry, who used to do a lot of like food review type videos, and they got him on that CCTV show. And if you watch it, it's actually very cringeworthy because, you know, the guy's trying really hard and his Chinese is good, he studies well, but the way that they portray him, it's like they're basically making fun of the guy. And I think it's okay for him because his humor is very self-deprecating and, you know, it fits in with this whole thing.
胖子老外, yeah.
Yeah, but, you know, for most people, it's really insulting because they will literally try their best to trip you up.
Yeah.
Now, I'm not going to say it's a Chinese-only fault, because think about it, in the West, we make fun of Chinese accents. You know, we'll say like, oh, you want some fried rice, or, you know, that kind of thing. But at the same time, here, it's not a once-in-a-while thing. It's like, it's always. If you end up on TV, they're always going to make fun of you. But the second thing is, maybe you could tell everybody about how much people get paid to sacrifice their time and go on TV.
Another negative aspect, I'd say the second big one, is that unlike in the West, you don't really get compensated for being famous. So if you go on a TV show, like you were talking about the CCTV4 thing, you've had an offer to go on there, and they wanted to pry into your life and take your time, but offered you zero money in compensation. Nothing.
Yeah.
Right? So you don't make money on TV here in China. It's almost looked at like you're lucky to be on the media, right? I don't know if that has to do with China's lack of, you know, media history or whatever, but if you go on TV, if you're famous, you're lucky to be allowed to be famous. You don't actually pull in any revenue. So, you know, that kind of answers the question as to why everyone always says, oh, why don't you put your SerpentZA and ADVChina and Churchill, why don't you put your media up on Chinese internet? Because we don't get paid to do it. And that's not the reason I make videos, but I have to make something back. Right. If I'm gonna spend all this time and effort, right? So you don't make money.
Correct. You know, that CCTV4, you know, like they've actually tried to get me on that CCTV4 program for years now. Like, I think the first time they contacted me was about 4 or 5 years ago, and at first I was very interested. You know, it's the same one that our friend Austin went on. And I said, sure. But then the guy kept asking me, or telling me, not asking me, he's telling me, he said, we're going to have to interview your girlfriend, we're going to have to interview your clients, we're going to have to sit in on your work at your workplace, we're going to have to interview your friends, and we're going to come and stay with you for 7 days and follow you around and everywhere you go and everything you do. And I thought, well, why should I do this? Why should I inconvenience myself?
Yeah.
And I don't like people prying into my privacy like that for nothing. They didn't want to pay me anything, and they said, yeah, but you're lucky that you're going to go on TV. Yeah. And I was like, well, you know what, I've actually been on TV a ton of times in China, but that's always been my own choice, you know?
Yeah.
Like, I pick and choose the interviews because they're beneficial to Churchill or Conquering Southern China, or I actually like the people who want to interview me, you know?
Right.
So that's the big difference. So yes, there's no reason to actually want to be famous in China because, number one, you're going to get ridiculed. But number two, it's actually dangerous. Okay,
yes.
Now, I don't want to just monologue here, so I'm going to let you go ahead and can you just tell people the kind of things that can happen to you when you get famous here?
Now, unfortunately, China's got a bit of a mob mentality. What that means is when you are famous, either the public loves you or the public hates you. And that can lead to some really malicious threats and comments. I mean, we talked about this in our human flesh search thing episode where, you know, if the Chinese internet netizens decide that you're a bad dude or they don't like you, then you get some really bad hate mail, we could say.
Yeah.
The kind of stuff, I mean, people have threatened to rape my wife, told me to abort my child, like just really, really nasty stuff. Oh, I know where you live. I'm going to come find you and kill you. You're making China look bad, even though I'm not.
Yeah.
Right? It's just really scary, bizarre stuff. And I think you've been touched by that fairly recently.
Oh yeah, dude, I've had it way worse, and I've had it for years and years. You know, like, 5 years ago I did that Are Chinese Girls Easy video?
Yeah.
And that, as you know, went viral. What do you say down here, eh?
Okay.
And back then, it was a very divisive thing. You know, you had people who either hated me or people who agreed with me, right?
Yeah.
And I got all sorts of threats and all that kind of thing, and they threatened to, you know, like, get the government to deport me, and, you know, they'll come and kill me and all that kind of nonsense, which is just part of this nationalistic sort of outrage that happens because, you know, unfortunately here in China, if you say anything that goes against what people believe, all of a sudden they have a knee-jerk reaction and, you know, they hate you.
Yeah.
Okay, but then recently, this, what would we say? This, what's the correct word? What's the correct word for someone who's scorned?
Butthurt.
Yes, okay, I'll say butthurt. But this butthurt reporter, this young college girl who failed at studying overseas, she went to study in England, and you know, she really failed and came back here. She hates foreigners. She's very xenophobic, but she works for a newspaper writing opinion pieces.
Yeah, it's actually the biggest newspaper in China, but it's the English version.
Yeah, the English version, and it's part of the Communist Party's propaganda.
Yes.
Maybe we should try down there.
Okay.
Anyway, I'll turn around. So basically, she watched my 5-year-old video,
Okay.
and it had just recently become famous again in China, and in fact, it was getting very positive sort of feedback. Everybody was agreeing with it and soul searching and saying, yes, you're right about this and that. But then she came along, and you know the old hell hath no fury, like a woman scorned, as they say.
Yep.
And she wrote a scathing article about it, and in one of the biggest newspapers here, and turned a lot of opinion against me, and actually caused a lot of trouble for me, you know, and it got pretty bad. Like it could have gotten to a point where I could have actually faced deportation or something like that, just because she wrote a scathing opinion piece.
Yep.
So you see, you put yourself in the line of fire when you get famous here, because you can actually have real world repercussions.
Yes.
You know, this isn't like America or another country where, you know, there's sort of freedom of speech, say what you want and, you know, do what you want. Here, it can literally get the government on you and get them to deport you or put you in jail or whatever. So your opinion can actually be quite dangerous here.
Right.
But only if you have a lot of people looking at your opinion, right? Because you can be a very controversial sort of a figure with like 20 followers and no one will care. It's only when you start to get a lot of followers. And that video of mine on Chinese media has been viewed millions of times, and so that's why.
Yep. So I guess that's about it, eh?
Pretty much. So I guess there's one other thing I'd like to touch on.
Okay.
There's a request that I get very often from my Chinese subscribers, which, by the way, anyone who's Chinese who's watching this, you know who you are. You know I really love you guys. I absolutely love my Chinese subscribers. It's just there are certain parts of Chinese culture which really kind of clash with being a foreigner here. Anyway, a lot of my Chinese subscribers, they ask me to put subtitles on my videos and upload them to Chinese media. And I was doing that for a short while, but there's no reason to do this. Okay, let's split this up. Number one, because you've also been asked this, why don't we do this?
Well, we don't do this because the amount of work and money and time that we put into these YouTube videos, if we weren't making a little bit of money off of it, then we wouldn't be able to it wouldn't happen, actually. It's just, we're very busy people, and, you know, I got a family to take care of. You're a self-made, you know, entrepreneur type guy. This kind of effort and time that we put into making these videos, if we're not compensated at all, then it would be too difficult. It would be almost impossible to do it. So I'd say the first reason is because we can't make any money. It's not compensated. People will argue, but on Yoku you can monetize. It's not
the truth is, it's really difficult to get monetized. You need to go through an incredibly long, difficult process. And even if you do monetize, you'll get nothing. Like, you know, a friend of ours who's getting millions of views, the most he ever made was like 5,000 ever in a month, after millions and millions and millions of views. So it's not worth the time, and on top of that, people steal our videos and put them up there anyway. So why should we, if someone's going to do it anyway?
I don't know.
So there's a couple of reasons not to, and it's just going to give us trouble and get us into more sticky situations, really.
You're correct.
So yeah, that's the reason why we don't do it. Yeah, that's it, really. Sorry if it was a bit negative, but being famous in China really doesn't have any positives.
I think I should remind you guys, as always, like, comment, and subscribe, and don't get famous in China. It's not worth it.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's really it, guys. And if you don't like, comment, or subscribe, like the weather today, stay awesome.
Stay hot?
Yeah, hot and awesome.
Okay.